Welcome to the Choosing Happiness podcast with me, your host, Rudrani Devi, the Happiness Lady. In these conversations, we will be discussing an uncommon way to find joy in your life with weekly special guests. Did you know you could choose your happy? Won't you come and play and discover how these magical tools could work for you? Let's do this! Well, howdy, y'all. Rudrani Devi, the Happiness Lady here. I even wrote a book about it. Choosing Happiness, an uncommon way to find joy in your life. Yes, a shameless plug for my book. And I have a repeat offender yet again today for the Choosing Happiness podcast. May I please welcome the beautiful, the talented, the sexy Kimberly Stewart to the Choosing Happiness podcast. Thank you so much for coming.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me. How does it get any better? I'll be a repeat offender anytime.
I love it. I love it. And for those of you, that aren't on YouTube, I would jump over there right now because she is eye candy, like to the extreme today. I mean, gorgeous. So, lady, what are we talking about today?
Oh, we're talking about one of my favorite things, allowance. So I would love to hear from you. What is allowance for you?
Well, in this 10 seconds, allowance is me being an allowance of my tired body without a point of view about it. Yeah. Sometimes you're doing so much in your world and then you beat yourself up because you're not doing enough. At least I'm talking about myself now.
Right.
And it's been very interesting because we've had some really interesting weather in Nashville. It's been very schizophrenic, as you know, hot, cold, hot, cold. And my body doesn't particularly care for that so much. And so I got some sniffles, a little sore throat, a little coughing going on. And you know what? I quit early yesterday.
Yeah.
And I made myself some hot toddies and I went to bed and I stayed in bed longer than I normally do. And that's allowance of me allowing my body to have what it requires. That's one way to look at allowance.
I like that. And here's the thing. So what I'm hearing is allowance is not being in judgment.
Yes.
So because you can't be in allowance if you're judging you.
Yeah, they cannot coincide. That is the truth. If you are picking on your partner or your friend or whatever, judging them, that's not necessarily allowing them to be who they be.
Right.
You're wanting them to be the way you want them to be. And that's not a kindness either. And would you want that to be perpetrated onto you? That's my question.
No. And I think, were you taught allowance as a child?
No.
See, I wasn't either. So I had no idea what allowance was and always being in judgment of me and thinking I'm wrong. And
I think the closest thing maybe, Kimberly, that I was taught was tolerance.
That.
Yet they're not congruent at all. Tolerance and allowance. Just lean into the energy of tolerance. It's like, well, I guess I got to put up with you.
Right. And there's judgment to that. Right? There's total judgment with that. And when I hear the word allowance, for me, there's this space. There's instant space when you're going to be in allowance. So when you were sharing that you were in allowance, you went to bed early, you stayed in bed longer, there's space. You weren't judging you.
Right. In the past, I'd be like, you're going to have to fight your way through this, girl. Put on your big girl panties and get to work.
Right. And then for me, before it would be actually proving more. If you got to fight for it, then you're in that proving. And how much like proving we're right, proving we're good.
I love that you put it that way because you know what? I think a lot of times that's what I was doing as well. It's like, hey, you know what? Throw anything at me. I can do this. I'm strong. I'm woman. Hear me roar. All the things that this reality tells you you have to be, So,
And there's no softness there. I think with allowance, there's the softness, there's the space. And I love that we're starting off with allowance because here we're also, this is the week of Thanksgiving in the United States. And so how great is that we're talking about allowance? And so can we go into a little bit, how about having allowance for family during this week? There's a lot of stuff that comes up. Can you say anything about that?
I certainly can. So some of you know that I moved my mother in with me, Celeste. And we're very different people. We like to do things differently. We cook differently, all of this. And it took me a while to be in the space for her to say, okay, when you're in the kitchen, I'm just not going to even, and I've actually said this to her, I'm not even going to watch you because I'll see her cooking a certain way using utensils I wouldn't use and all this stuff. And I'd always have something to say. And I finally had to go, how rude, Rue. I mean, would you want her to do that with you? Okay. So then add on that that I'm one of 6 children. And we are going to be descended upon greatly for this Thanksgiving. And they have all their ways of doing things as well. So the big space of allowance here for me personally is the last time my brother came to visit, he was trying to help as much as he could. And I was teaching classes online and my mother was teaching piano lessons. And I finally said, we're just being allowance of him wanting to help and doing it his way. And so he would be like, well, what can I do? I'm like, well, you could unload the dishwasher. And girl, I mean, I had to look for things because he put things wherever he thought he should put them. And you know what? I actually made it fun for me. I know this sounds weird, but I was like, you know what? That was really cool that he wanted to help. He did. He maybe put dishes where I wouldn't put them and all of that. And I just went back and did my little meditation of putting the dishes back where I would put them. And I actually had this sense of gratefulness towards him. And that's different for me, you know?
So there's having the allowance.
Right. And it wasn't hard. You know, it was just me saying, okay, he does things his way. I do things my way. My mother cooks the way she does. I cook the way I do. Who cares? What difference does it make? Why do I need to have everybody be just like me? You know, or do things just like me?
Exactly.
Why can't we see the gift and allowing other people to gift us the way they see things? Or I don't know if I'm making sense here.
So what I'm getting is allowance is choice. Are you willing to choose allowance in every 10 seconds in every situation? How can I be an allowance here?
Right.
Am I willing to be an allowance here? Really, it's the willingness. Because sometimes I'm not willing. Just like
I can't believe that about you.
I know it's shocking. You're like, really? You know, but am I willing? I was reading in something in the past 2 days, and it said allowance is choice. Are you willing to be in choice? Are you willing to choose it? And if you're willing to choose it, there's a different space because then we're in no judgment. There's the interesting point of view. Am I willing to, interesting point of view? I have the point of view of what's happening or what I think it is. And am I willing to choose allowance?
And and another thing is I have said also, this is another access tool. If I do choose this, will my life be greater? If I choose this, what will this create? And then I notice the energy of it. So if I choose to be an allowance here, doesn't mean I have to agree.
No.
Doesn't mean I have to agree with what they're choosing. If I can be an allowance of it, what will that create?
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Peace. Peace.
Well, and especially at a time right now when we're dealing with holidays and family, and there's all this stuff that comes up. Will it create greater if I'm an allowance? It kind of gets me to pause. And it's really good for me to like zip my lip. Yeah. And that's where I could be an allowance of me. What if I don't have to have the answer? What if I don't have to have the solution? When I'm around family, that's the trigger for solutions. Like, it's like, I was always taught, like, you're supposed to have the answer. And so if I'm an allowance, what if I can just be the space and allow you to be?
That's beautiful. And I love it because you guys couldn't see this if you weren't on the YouTube, but when she's like shutting her mouth and holding her hands like she's closing her mouth shut. For me, I always say, shut your pie hole. That's my big joke. It's like, I do this a lot, actually. It's like, okay, if I say this, is this going to create shit? Is this going to create crap? Or is this going to create greater? Yeah. Sometimes, being an allowance of you speaking up is what's required.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so, being in that question. And so I love that allowance, right? But including us. And then when I learned allowance, it was always about everyone else. And today, if I'm not including me, that's not okay.
Right. Yeah. Awareness includes everyone and everything, and you too.
And you.
So, right.
Yeah.
So don't leave you out of the equation, people. We're not saying that allowance is a doormat.
Not at all.
What I guess I'm trying to make here is, peace, love, and harmony isn't always going to be the key, right? We
No.
are all different people, but what would it create? I love it. Gary says sometimes you do things you don't want to do because it's easier.
Yeah.
And what if choosing to be an allowance, whether you agree or not, is easier, is more peace, is more space, and it's kinder to you?
That it's kinder to you. Are you willing to be kinder to you? And and that ripple effect when you are in allowance with you, how that rips out to everyone else. That ripples out to everyone else.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, so your situation's a little different because you're a mommy.
I'm the mom of adult children. They don't live, well, my three children don't live with me. I do have my bonus son who's 19, and he is such a gift, right? Like he's the one that he took me to the airport, and he knows I taught him that you do not pick up a girl in a dirty vehicle. He had cleaned his car out and upholstered the passenger seat because it was so dirty before I got in it to take me to the airport.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
But like what a gift he is. And I'm an allowance of what he chooses. He could have chosen to have the car dirty. I would have been an allowance of that. But I had forgotten. I showed him that. And so when we're an allowance and when we're being us and being kind, we don't even realize the impact we have on those around us until those little moments show up. And you're like, oh, huh.
That is so true, girl. Huh. It's very interesting because I had a family event May of this year, where I felt like I was being the doormat, and I was just trying to make everything smooth. It was my mom's birthday, this big celebration. And then I finally just kind of blew my top, right? Because we teach people how to treat us,
We do.
And I don't think they were even realizing that they were not picking up after themselves and all the stuff. And so I blew my lid, y'all. I got very upset. And it's changed everything. Here was this honoring of myself, right? Being what I required to be. And I taught them, how to treat me in those 10 seconds. And now it's amazing. It's like we are all a lot more honoring of each other. It's funny because I wanted to talk about a different tool. But I think now I want to talk about honoring because that piece is sort of pinging for me now.
Okay. So
guys, we need to take just a little quick breaky for our sponsor because we got to pay the bills. So we will be right back. Here's a little bit about Mandu.
Mandu is a boutique fitness studio concept, and we are actually the first FDA cleared EMS training workout. And what we do essentially is that we will have a client come in, we will hook them up to a whole body EMS suit, and then we perform a workout on a medical grade device called an eFit device. And that device will send an electrical current to their body through electrodes in these suits that we put on them. And this electrical current is just basically stimulating the electrical current that you already have inside your body. So everybody is made up of electrical impulses. It's what helps you walk, helps you move. We're tapping into that and making it stimulate it more to where we can cause a muscle to actually contract involuntarily. So we can actually create resistance without adding a load to the body. So that is why we, as you see online, it always says ultra low impact. It is scientifically proven. It is absolutely ultra low impact.
And we're back. Kimberly, we were talking about allowance, and it's a beautiful tool of access consciousness. And then before we segued into the commercial, this honoring piece came up because we were also talking about allowance of ourselves and how honoring that can be. So I'm going to flip the switch here and say, so what is honoring to you?
Including me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Considering me. And I didn't know how to do that before because I knew how to take care of everybody else and put everyone first.
Right.
And there was no honoring of me. And so I was always honoring of other people and what you're choosing and how can I contribute, but I wasn't including me in the honoring. And today I include me. What's going to work for me? What's going to create greater for me?
That's beautiful. Yeah. I mean, just before we took the commercial break, I was talking about how I got really upset with my family, and it was an honoring of me to actually let them know how I felt. And, you know, honoring is showing people how to treat you also. And I don't mean in a sense of poo-pooing everybody else, but I had to learn that lesson for myself. I guess the same way as you, because I was also taught. I came from a big family where children were seen and not heard. You set the table, you were polite to all the grown-ups. And where were you in the equation? And then you get older and you've been trained to be this certain way. And I come from a very European Italian family where, we had to behave a certain way and we had to be prim and proper and all the stuff. And I bled that into my adult life when my family would come for holidays or celebrations or whatever, because now my mother's here, they're all coming to us. And it was such an honoring, and that's what kind of led me into this. But also, honoring of others. What does that look like?
Well, can you even really do it if you're not honoring you?
Mm-hmm.
So I give you an example. When you just said like honoring, you said with your family. My husband works out of state, and he flew back in on Friday, and I was out of town for business, and I got back in last night, and he had invited some friends to stay at our home this week, and he's only home for a week, and I wasn't good with that, and so I said, you know what, I was going to honor me, and they originally were going to be in the home before I got home yesterday. I was like, that's not going to work. That I come home from a business trip, there's people in the house, and I haven't seen you in 6 weeks. No, and so. But I looked mean, right? I looked mean. Other people perceived me as mean. And are you willing to honor you and include you first and be willing not to be liked? I wasn't willing to not be liked before.
That.
So there it is.
Not being willing to be the bitch.
Yeah. And today, as Gary Douglas has said to me, the kingdom of bitch, I can be it. And, yes. And so being willing to look like a bitch.
You're right.
I was willing. I will let you know, it was still uncomfortable. I could perceive in my husband's world, he was not happy. But I honored me and stayed the course because I asked what was going to create greater. And I knew I would have been a bigger bitch if I would have came home to people in my house.
Right.
And,
Which is kind to them too, by the way.
I was very kind. But so like being willing to look like a bitch and honor you and not be liked. Mm-hmm. How often do we avoid that?
True story.
Yeah.
It's so funny because you say that, and all these scenarios are now popping into my head where I just, instead of shutting my pie hole, I bit my lip, when it would have created more, not just for honoring of myself, but the future. Honoring my family. Hey, you know what? This doesn't work for me, you guys. I need for you to be more conscientious. I have to get up early and work the next day, and you guys have the TV on until 2 a.m. I don't think so. That doesn't work for me.
Right. That's not honoring. And it's just interesting. The more that we start to honor ourselves, it creates greater.
Yeah.
It creates greater.
I would rather, Kimberly, you tell me how you truly feel than to walk around on eggshells around me because you're afraid that what you are going to say or do or be is going to offend me or hurt my feelings or any of those things. And, and I've gotten to know you, I guess it's been about a year now.
Yeah.
And the thing that I admire so much about you is your strength and your willingness to be who you are. And I know I've heard you say, I didn't used to be that way. And yet I can't imagine a day that you weren't that way. And I learned a lot from you. From you just being you. So thank you.
Thank you. Well, there's the gift of engaging and being willing to be vulnerable and being willing to receive, right? I didn't know how to do that. And how much did we grow up with? I know that I grew up with that women were bad. Can't trust women. Women are catty. And so most women don't avoid those female relationships. And I believe we all require a wall of women, and that could be 4 women, a circle of women that have your back in that creationship together to inspire each other with no competition and no judgment. Like, that's what I'm asking in my world. And so that means I've got to honor me, honor you, and lower my walls and barriers and show up as me.
Yeah, you being that is the invitation to create even more of that around you, and for others to know that they can choose it too.
Yeah.
You know, because I think a lot of women don't feel like they can. They automatically go out of the gate not trusting anybody. You know?
Right. But so how much do they not trust themselves?
Mm-hmm.
So there's where we can start with allowance, have allowance for us, and then honor us. And then you're going to start to bring in those women.
Right.
Right. Because we're talking about the 5 elements of intimacy.
We are. We kind of came around at the back doorway, because trust is another one. Right.
So,
and vulnerability as well.
Yeah. Honor. There you go. And it was an honor being on here with you. Like, how fun. How fun.
Well, I'm going to have you back, because now I think we're going to have a conversation about trust.
We are.
And vulnerability. And the reason why we're even talking about these elements of intimacy is because we have an offering coming up. Yes. I love that book. That book is what started it all, y'all. I don't know where I put mine, but it's somewhere around here.
Are you sure I want one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's this book's fault. And then there's this one, Divorceless Relationships, which I love also, because we have a tendency to divorce ourselves in relationships. I've got a relationship done different class coming up, y'all, and it's real easy to get to, because all you got to do is get online.
It's great.
You don't even have to get in your car.
You can do it in your pajamas. You could do it in your really comfy clothes. You can do it from home. And oh my goodness. And here's the thing. Do you want a relationship? I kept thinking it was about all these other things. And now it includes everything, but it includes you. Mm-hmm. I'm so excited for this, because I'm in that space of including me.
Yes. That's what's so interesting about this particular class, Kimberly. I'm so glad you brought that up. Everyone thinks it's going to be about their relationship with their partner or their friends or family. And yes, it can be that also. Right. But initially, it is about that relationship with you, that honoring of you, that allowance of you. Because if you don't have that for you, well, try really hard to have that in a relationship. It's
right. You can't.
Yeah. That's what these tools are about, and these 5 elements of intimacy that we've been kind of talking about. But I'm going to have you back. We're going to talk about the other elements.
Thank you.
And when is this offering? This class is coming up pretty quick, isn't it?
I think it's December 12th. I want to say it's December 12th.
So talk amongst yourself, Kimberly. I'm going to go look at my computer. Okay, wait a minute. It's December 14, 15, and 16.
I was close.
You were very close. We were doing a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, 17. But we make it so easy for you guys. I'm beginning at 12 noon. We'll go for 2 hours. We'll take an hour lunch break. We will come back at 3 and go until 5.
And that's going to be 12 noon Central Time, Nashville time, like Houston time. So that you know. So yeah. So come play with us, and what a great time before the end of the year to start having that relationship, that exploration with you.
Yes.
And to start off a new year with truly a new you.
I love it. We've got to end on that note, because that was just too beautiful, girl. Fantastic. We'll have all the details below, and be looking for us next week as well, because I'm having you back. It's happening before this class.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, you guys. I'll have notes for you to find Kimberly as well. Okay.
Thank you.
And if you enjoyed it, please hit the subscribe button. And if you know someone that this could contribute to this class or this conversation, hey, maybe just dipping a toe into this conversation is enough for now. We're an allowance of that. We're not going to push too hard. So, thanks again, Kimberly. Until next time, y'all.
Bye.
Ciao, ciao for now.
Thank you so much for choosing happiness. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe, share, and give us a like. And if you want more happy, subscribe to the Choosing Happiness membership, where you can play directly with me, Rudrani Devi, the Happiness Lady. How does it get any better than that?